Hello and welcome. I am going to be talking tonight with a woman named Kara Phillips about parenting children who are dealing with mental illness while taking care of yourself. And that last part is kind of key to the conversation, because I think it's so hard for people to take care of themselves when they're going through challenging times. And then that, of course, makes me realize, well, this topic could be applicable really to most of us who go through challenging times, right? So listen up. I think we're going to get some good tips from Kara. And welcome, Kara.
Thank you, Mary. It's so nice to be here.
I have worked with your father and mother through the years, doing many interviews. And that's part of your background too, isn't it? Coming from a family who are very deeply into self-exploration and learning.
Yes, it's a whole, I always say that my story starts there, right? Everybody has a story. And mine starts with the fact that I was raised by two therapists. I mean, not a lot of people can say that.
Right.
So I grew up with, just living and understanding the need for good communication and respecting people and listening and encouraging and that kind of thing. So it's sort of just who I am, because that's how I was raised, and it's my worldview.
So you had good models.
I did.
Her father was my very first television guest way back in 1980, and his name is Tom Wright. Many of you have seen him, I bet, on the show. Her mother is Judith Wright, and also
it's just Judy.
Therapist. Just Judy,
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
But they've both been on, so it's great to have you on now too.
It's fun.
Family affair here.
Right.
Kara is a certified life coach, and you've been telling me that you come to this topic and this learning from both professional and personal experience.
Absolutely.
So you've got a story to tell about your own family and dealing with your own personal nuclear family.
Yep, absolutely. So it starts from, like I was saying, being raised by therapists, and I thought I was so well equipped. Like, I was really well equipped to handle what life was going to bring me. And
bring it on. I can take anything.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I thought I am ready, and then I wasn't at all prepared for what I ended up with. And so it was just a journey. I had to learn along the way, and it was nothing I expected,
And you said you had 3 children.
I have 3 children.
And each of them has had some struggle with mental illness, with one having more than the others,
Yep,
right?
I've got the 2 older are boys, and they both struggled and do still struggle sometimes with anxiety and depression. And, one of them takes some medication to help with that. The other one insists on dealing with it himself. And he's actually pretty good at it, but it's a day-to-day thing. I mean, every day he's consciously working on it. But our daughter, she's the youngest one, and she also deals with those things, but she has a whole range of diagnoses that she dealt with. So we really it was our whole life for a lot of years.
And when you say whole life, tell us what that means. I mean, whole life, that means work was pushed back from the forefront because of the kids.
Yep, absolutely.
That kind of thing.
It was, she was the focus, and making sure that she was safe and that she was alive, that was our focus. And so however we had to make that work throughout about 7 or 8 years period of time, she had, maybe 7 hospitalizations for suicidal thoughts and or attempts. And lots of different diagnoses, and did a residential treatment program in Arizona for 3 months, which was really, really good.
But even finding the right place to go is a huge challenge, isn't it?
It is, especially when you don't know. You didn't know you were going to need those resources.
Right.
And it's funny because it's just another resource. Like when our oldest was born, one of his bones in his leg was bowed. And so we needed a specialist from the time he was 4 months old. You know, so you don't know those things, right? And you don't know, well, how do I find this particular specialist? You just figure it out. And so that's what we did with that, and that's what we did with her.
I've often thought that the figuring out, though, it takes a certain kind of self-confidence and support maybe from other family members. And so many people, I think, fall between the cracks because they don't know how to, maybe we use the phrase, work the system or find what they need and persevere, because you get a lot of dead ends, don't you think, especially in mental health?
I mean, yes, you do. And I think, too, just given my background with my parents, I at least was someone who knew that there was help available, that there were resources to find, instead of just going, what is wrong with my kid, you know, and just sort of living with I used to say we just lived in the crazy at our house. And I don't mean that derogatorily. She's not crazy, but the dynamic in our house was so crazy, was so up and down.
From other,
you know,
other
just
families.
Yeah, just the whole family, you know, with her older brothers, and the whole family dynamic was a lot.
What do you think, Kara, are some of the big differences from raising a child, or children in your case, who are dealing with mental illness compared to regular children who are not dealing with mental illness?
Well, I think from a parent perspective, and that's where I like to focus my work, is on the parents. I think, you know, one of the biggest differences is sort of what I just mentioned, like knowing that you need to find resources and how to do that. You know, if children who aren't struggling with these extra sorts of things, I mean, teenagers are just tough, right?
No matter what, right?
Yes, in the best of circumstances, raising children is hard, you know, and it changes day to day and year to year and kid to kid, right? One thing that works with one child doesn't necessarily work with the other one.
Is there?
No. And so I think, you know, given that bar, right, then when you throw a mental illness or some other challenging situation into the mix, for one thing, it adds a whole nother level of stress to the family and to the parents in particular. So the child in particular and the parents, but the whole family feels it. And time, right?
That's a good point. I mean, time to get to the doctor, to find the resources, to maybe go to support groups, to deal with the child who you're worried about and you don't want to leave. All those kind of things, right?
Yeah, and it just, you know, parenting can put a strain on a marriage in any way, right? Like if you have different ideas about chores or allowance or bedtime or, you know, whatever freedoms or privileges that they get. So those kinds of things always come into play anyway. And then I think when you throw in a child who has some sort of challenge, then that's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother level. And so it's almost like, you know, if a couple, a husband and wife, experience some sort of loss, like a job loss, or let's say they're moving, or, you know, the loss of a parent or something like that. Those are things that typically cause stress and depression in anybody.
Right.
But they're also things that happen and then you deal with and you move on. And when you're dealing with a child with mental illness, that's not how that goes.
It's a chronic, ongoing thing,
chronic.
Isn't it?
I mean, you deal with it, and of course it ebbs and flows, and some days are good, you know. But it's always on your mind, and it's always something you're dealing with. And so it just is a whole different level of stress and on a marriage.
I think the statistic that comes to my mind is that about 80% of couples who have children who are dealing with special challenges of whatever nature don't make it as couples because of that extra stress.
Yeah, I would believe that. I don't know, I'm not familiar with the statistics, but I would believe that.
What do you think, Kara, is the hardest thing for a parent who's got a child with mental illness? Is there one thing that jumps out?
I kind of want to say two things. The first thing is the acceptance. And I remember going through that with my kids too, because when you're pregnant and your children are babies, you have these dreams for them. And you imagine their lives as they're growing up and all the wonderful things that are going to happen. And then when something comes up that interferes with that, then you have to adjust the dream, right? Then you have to realize that what you have is the new dream. And you have to go from there. You go, this is what we have, and we'll dream from here, which in reality makes more sense than, the dreaming about somebody's life that you haven't met yet, or that hasn't grown yet,
It's a real loss, isn't it?
It is a real loss. You have to accept that fact.
To let go of that dream that was maybe a little pie in the sky, but still realistic.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't dream that when their son is born, he's going to be a football player. He's going to, play varsity football in high school or something like that. Or your daughter's going to be in dance or whatever your family's dream is, right? And, if you realize, my child has a handicap, they're not going to be playing sports, then you have to readjust.
My child might not get married, or my child might not live to be 85 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot
whatever
of
it is, whatever the scenario is.
Yeah.
So it is a grieving process, and I think you have to accept that and allow yourself to have those feelings, and then you can be glad in what you do have, and it's a lot easier to celebrate the successes that you're seeing because they're more realistic.
Do you think that most couples grieve differently and then come to acceptance at a different rate too?
Absolutely.
I'm guessing it's usually not in sync.
Right. Because everybody grieves differently. Right. That's just always true. And unless you're really good at communicating about feelings,
and you both
have to be, right?
Right.
And you have to be willing to accept and talk about what your reality is. So.
One of the things I was thinking would be another and related kind of hard thing would be explain to your child that he or she has something that's maybe going to go on for a long, long time. Are there some tips you have or experiences you had?
Well, I think one thing to remember is that if you can identify that for your child and name that for them, that will be helpful for them because they're feeling it. They know something's wrong. It's not that they're not aware, right? They don't feel right. They feel like they're different than other people. And so if you can say, listen, this is happening inside of you, and all that means is that we need to take care of it. Just like we would if you have the flu or if you have strep throat, we're going to see the doctor, we're going to talk to somebody, we're going to get some help.
So not a lot of drama.
No.
Keep it factual. That all sounds comforting even, hearing it from the child's point of view, I bet.
Well, I would imagine. I mean, because it is, like I said, they know. It's not going to be a shock to them for you to be able, in fact, like I said, helpful for them to be able to know that what they're experiencing has a name. It is a thing, and they're not crazy.
And it's okay to talk about it.
And it's okay to talk about it, for sure.
Well, I want to shift gears because we want to spend the second half of the show here talking about how parents need to really take care of themselves too.
Yeah.
And I think here we can say this is pretty universal, whether you're just a parent who's a single parent and working full-time, or you've got special needs children of any stripe or type, or you're just a retired couple and you're not having enough time to give to each other. I mean,
Absolutely.
It can really
right. Self-care
apply to
is
everybody.
so important. It's important for you individually, and it's important for your loved ones. Right? So if you don't take the time to take care of yourself, then you end up depleted of all of your resources and you have nothing left to give, right? And somebody will want something and you're like, I mean, I can't. I've got nothing. And so to take some time on a regular basis, a consistent basis, to do something for yourself is really important. And it's not selfish. So some people think that if I take some time for myself and do something just for me, I'm being so selfish. But that's not true. It's good for everybody if you do that. And so I like to kind of break up the self-care techniques into some different groups. So because there's the ones where, if life is ideal and you've got money and time to spend, you can do these things. As women, we often like to go get our nails done, go get a mani-pedi, or maybe go get your hair done, cut and highlighted or whatever. Something like that feels like you're pampering yourself. But sometimes, especially if you've got kids who have special needs or, mental illness or whatever the issue is that requires extra time and attention from you, you don't have time for that.
Or you feel you don't.
Well, right. But
some of the reality is that you don't many days, too.
Right. But there are things that you can still do. There are things you can do if you don't have a lot of time or if you don't have a lot of money to spend on something like that.
For example?
For example, some of the favorite things that I like to do are say affirmations. So you can look at yourself in the mirror and really look at yourself in the eye and say the things that would be affirming to you. So, for instance, you can say, I am a good mom. I am doing the best that I can do. I am competent, I am capable, I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I am loved. Those kinds of things. Maybe you add in, I am beautiful, or, I'm funny, or I'm smart. Whatever helps you. And everybody's different in that regard. So whatever helps you, but to look at yourself in the mirror and say those things every day, it's really helpful.
I once read that you don't have to totally believe those things either.
That's exactly right.
When you state them, that the mind is like a tape recorder.
Yes.
Is this sounding like something you've
Absolutely.
learned to?
You don't have to believe it, but just say it to yourself. And if you continue to say it to yourself, you will begin to believe it. Right? You can train yourself to believe these things.
It's very exciting. I think that is a really neat strategy.
Yeah.
What are some others that you like?
I also really like journaling. And that can be, there's lots of different ways to journal. So if you just want to write as like a creative expression, you could do that. Or you could use like journal prompts. So a little phrase or statement to get you started on something to write about. I actually have some of those on my website that you can download to just get you started if you want to start. But it can also just be like stream of consciousness. Because a lot of times people are resistant to journaling for some reason. And I'm not really sure why, but when I find myself like, I don't know what's wrong, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, and I need to figure it out, I have to process, I will just start writing. And sometimes I start with, I don't know what's wrong, this is dumb. Whatever. And you just start, and then it's like you're talking to somebody. And so you just the words start spilling out, and eventually you get to some meaty stuff. And I find that once you get it from your head out of your body, it's a lot easier to deal with and process.
Kind of like talking to a good friend who you can unload with.
Yep, which is another self-care technique. To get together with a friend either over the phone or for coffee or something and just talk. Sometimes about what the issue is, sometimes about anything except that. Do
you need to say to that friend, hear me out, I need to talk about something hard.
I think that's a great idea to do that. And you'll know your friend and you know, your relationship and how they'll respond to you, right? But I like that. Like sometimes, for instance, my sister will call me and she'll say, hi, I need to talk to my sister. And then I know I have to put my sister hat on because we're going to have that kind of conversation, you know,
So
other
that's
than
the cue that she's got some hard stuff to
yeah.
share.
Yeah,
Okay.
instead of just chit-chatting or just, you know, day-to-day stuff, if she has something she wants to talk about, she'll call and let me know she wants to talk to my sister.
What about support groups? Are you a proponent of those?
Absolutely. You know, we, you know, 8-10 years or so, we were in the thick of things with our kids. And I didn't have that support system. You know, I was in that place where I felt alone and isolated, and like there's no way anybody would understand what we're living with. And I was reluctant to tell people much about my regular daily life because, I mean, even if I told them snippets, they'd be like, whoa, you know? And I thought, well, they'll never understand. But recently, in the last 6 months or so, I actually went to a NAMI meeting, and it was really amazing. I felt like if I had known that it existed when we were in the thick of things, that would have been so helpful, and I would have gone all the time, because it was really so good to be in a room full of people who get it, who understand what you're going through, who aren't going to judge you, you know, who maybe have been where you are and have some tips. You know, some things that worked for them that you can try. And I just, yeah, it's so great. I would totally recommend it.
And NAMI stands for?
The National Alliance for Mental Illness. And it's all over the country.
Right.
So, but here in the Twin Cities, there's many chapters just locally to the Twin Cities, but it's also all outstate too. And even if you're somewhere where there's not a close meeting, they do online meetings too.
Well, they do.
They
didn't
do.
know that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's relatively new, but you can join an online support group at NAMI.
That's very good to know.
Yeah.
What about exercise? I once remember reading someone said, I can't sweat and worry at the same time. Oh. And I think there's truth in that. Is that a good stress reducer, do you think?
Exercise definitely is. You know, it's a good stress reducer for anything. So if you've got the time and you can do that, it's good because it does get the tension out. It kind of releases toxins from inside of your body, sweat it out, and it exhausts you. If you're doing it good, you know, if you're doing it well, it will exhaust you, and that's helpful. So absolutely, I would recommend it if you're someone who likes to exercise.
What about the process of coaching? We only have 2 or 3 minutes left.
Okay.
A lot of people, of course, see a therapist or a counselor. How are you different as a certified coach from a counselor?
Okay, well, you know, it's similar to counseling. You know, it's in the same field, but it is different in that as your coach, I'm not a therapist or a consultant or an expert on anything. You're the expert. And it's my job to listen to you and to ask questions that help you to think of things in a new way, to find new perspectives, to think of things differently, and to really think about things that you haven't thought about before, with the idea being that you have all of the answers, and I'm just helping you find them and know what you already know inside.
That's a really neat way to think about it, isn't it?
It's a really
Giving a lot
powerful
of power.
work.
Yeah, I was thinking the word power too. Power to the client or the person that is calling you.
Yep, and you know, when you have those epiphany moments, it's just so helpful and you feel so good about that. And then we often do homework between sessions. We'll say, well, we've worked on this. What can you do between now and the next time to help cement that or to further investigate that or whatever, you know, wherever we are in that process. But so a lot of the work happens outside of session.
Sure.
So the session will get you started, and then it's your job to do the work, and then we'll touch base and regroup and move on from there.
Now, I've not used a coach. Do you usually work in like 50, 60-minute time blocks?
Yep.
As a therapist or counselor would?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, for sure. And one of the really cool things about coaching is that it is primarily done over the phone.
It is.
It is, so you don't need to be local. So, any of the viewers in North Dakota or outstate Minnesota or Western Wisconsin could coach with someone like me in the Twin Cities because you can do it
Sure.
over the phone.
Doing it on the phone, is that more common as a coach client than in person?
It is the most common way that coaching happens.
Okay.
Is over the phone. One of the benefits is that you can do it from the comfort of your home. You're not commuting, or maybe you sit in your car during your lunch hour at work. Whatever works for you.
Okay.
But you can do it in person, and you can also do like video chat if you would prefer that.
Okay. Well, Carrie, we're out of time. Quickly give us your contact info, the best way to reach you.
Okay, well, my website is www.livingrhythmandjoy.com, and that's all spelled out one word. And my email is Kara, K-A-R-A, at livingrhythmandjoy.com.
So either way we can
Either
reach
way,
you.
there's a contact me page on my website that you can ask questions or, just say, hey, can you reach me? Call me back, or an email, and I will respond.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great getting to work with you and learn from you. I love your tips.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much, Kara.
Thank you, Mary.
Kara Phillips was my guest. We're talking about taking care of yourself while raising children who are dealing with tough things. So check out her website, blogs, or her email address. You can reach her that way. Thank you for being with us. I'll be back again next week, hopefully with better voice. Bye-bye.